Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at upnradio.com.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning if you're somewhere overseas, and welcome to Distill, a 360-degree view of life in sports. Turn down your phone. I am Wendy Rosenthal, and I am here this afternoon, as I am every other Tuesday, with the beautiful, the elegant, and the wearing. She looks like a Robert Palmer guitar woman. And you might as well face it, Addicted to Love. Please do. My co-host, Arish Switzer. Listen, normally, you are the one.
I'm in the athletic gear, yes.
You are dressed down. And I'm not dressed up, but I'm certainly not as casual as I am today.
I know. I apologize. I came from seeing a client, so I cleaned up a little today.
On the one day
Next
when we're
time,
talking
from
about
the gym.
where we're supposed to look like,
I was going to come fully decked out in my Adidas gear. Because I have lots. I do love it. You don't have any on. She's representing.
Yes.
She's got it on.
Normally we don't jump to the hat so fast, but I'm going to jump to the hat.
Yeah.
So, as many of you might know, and then I'll come back and tell you why we're here. I wear a different hat on every show, and I try and connect that with our guest. And today our guest is an amazing woman who I'm going to introduce in a minute, but she happens to be a senior director of merchandising at Adidas, so I had to wear my Adidas gear. I was excited that I had it so I could wear it. It was like, yes, I don't have to stretch. I don't have to stretch. 'Cause usually it's like a total stretch as to what my hat means.
Yeah.
And if you saw our show a couple of weeks ago, I was wearing a birthday hat that my son and his friends made for me. So I'll stretch it as far as it has to go. Anyway, we are here every other Tuesday at the glorious Universal Broadcasting Network studios and Sunset and Gower in beautiful downtown Hollywood with our amazing producer and security blanket, Jarvis Essex, who we really adore and love. Where's your clap? Where's your round of applause, Jarvis? Oh, look at this. Look at this. I caught him off guard. We are so happy to be here. And why are we here? Well, Ava and I are the co-owners of a business sports consulting firm called The Distillery, and we work with athletes at every level, amateur to pro, to help them transition and repurpose their athletic intelligence for their life after sports. And we are sports fanatics, and that's why we think we have the right to come here every other Tuesday and talk to you about sports in general. And basically, we believe that sports is a metaphor for life, and you can see every aspect of your life across the board in sports, and that's why we love to talk about it. So we're very grateful that you're here listening to us today. How are you doing?
I like this.
Yeah?
Yes.
You like it?
You're doing a great job so far, Wendy.
Oh, thank you. I like it when I start off well. I had a little hiccup last week. I had laryngitis, so it wasn't as smooth. But
smooth enough.
Smooth enough. Our topic today is called The Future is Female, and while we might believe that is true in every aspect of life, especially given all the things that are going on in the world today, we are talking about it specifically as it relates to big sports athleisure brands. I don't know how our guest will explain what she wants to call the industry of sportswear, but I think it's not fair to say sportswear anymore because it's so far beyond that. And how companies like Adidas are really having to deal and transition to a focus that is primarily female-oriented in terms of not only product development, but how they're talking to women, how they're selling their products, the influencers that are coming along with it. We're very excited because guess what? We actually do buy these products. We have lots of complaints, which we're not going to load only on Sarah, size being one of them. And if one of our favorite listeners, Gia Gallo's out there, I'm sure you'll want to call in and talk to Sarah about your issues with sizing.
Because I get an earful almost every week
from
her about sizing.
Exactly. So if you do want to call in and have a chat with us or Sarah and give your thoughts and opinions, you can call us at 323-284-0000. 7826, or you can Skype us at UBN Radio 1 Guest, or you can comment on our Facebook page. I do check down every now and then. First of all, I want to thank all of you who are watching. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Please send your comments, your feedback on Facebook, and I will get to you when I can. So let us just... Oh, no, before we launch, sorry. Sarah, you got to hold on for one more second. We did want to have one. Normally, every couple of weeks, we will talk about what's going on in the world of sports. And there's a lot of stuff going on. The Masters, congratulations to Patrick Reed on his amazing win. The Dodgers, oh my God, what the heck?
They're going to get it together.
And I see my dad is watching. Dad, I'm counting on you the next time you go to a game to, like, I don't know, have a conversation with somebody there.
Yeah.
You know,
they'll get it together.
And get Justin Turner back, because
the season is young.
I know, but it's still, it's like
I
heartbreaking. It's like, how are they going to catch up?
Right.
But you know what I really wanted to talk about very quickly is the fact that last show we were talking about should college athletes be paid, and we had a lot of very great comments and lots of opinions. And I read this great online magazine called the Players Tribune. We're big fans of the Players Tribune. And why is it? Because they actually have the athletes themselves writing the articles or being co-written with somebody. And so it's truly from the player's perspective. And I read this article by a young man named Darius Basley. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. And this was just last week off the heels of our show. And the reason I found it so interesting is because he is a very highly sought after high school basketball player who has made a very significant choice.
Yeah.
And that is to not go into university, even though he has been
offered several full scholarships.
And he was going to go to Syracuse. Yeah. And he's making the choice to go play G-ball in the G League, because it's kind of like the minor leagues of baseball for those of you who don't, basketball for those of you who don't know. And he's making a choice to forgo a college career.
Right.
Along with the education and along with all of the training facilities and along with all the coaching, to take that 1 year that they have to wait in order to get drafted into the NBA to play professional basketball.
And on a salary doing so.
And on a salary, albeit a $26,000 salary, which the best part of the article, he was saying the most criticism he was taking about his decision is that he was only going to make $26,000 a year. And he's like, dude, I'm 17 years old. If I have $5 in my pocket, it's amazing. And so for me, $26,000 is
to play the game he loves.
As he put it, I think he said, I can buy a lot of chips with that.
Right.
And what's so fascinating to us, I think, is that we were talking about the fact that, you know, universities are really going to start feeling the pinch of players not really caring if they get the education. So they're going to make choices to go into whatever system they can that might afford them a little bit of money, but will get them into their professional play faster. And I view that as sad and tragic all at once, but amazing that there's opportunities for young athletes to now make that, to stand up and make that choice.
Yeah, and he was confident and capable enough to be able to do so for himself. Well, it's a big deal.
And he really thought it through. He said this was a very big process that he had to heartfelt. It was not just a spur of the moment process. So I think we're going to stay tuned on this topic, because I think it's going to come back around, as we can see many times over. And I think that the fate of college athletics is really hanging in the balance in a serious way if the NC2A, again, we welcome anybody from the NC2A to come on and talk to us about it. But until somebody steps up and gives these players a way through the college system, I see you'll
more
have
of this happening.
You're going to have the A players going off to the minor leagues, which we talked about.
Which we talked about, absolutely. So anyhow, we're wishing him lots of luck.
We are.
We're looking the best decision for him.
Well, I'm looking forward to tracking his career. And actually, we'll probably bring this around to Sarah in a minute, because he might be somebody, I know he's male, but he might be somebody who, you know, the big companies like Adidas and Nike would pursue now that they can in a totally different way.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I want to welcome a very dear friend of mine who I had the honor and privilege of working with. I won't say how long ago, because it will date both of us, and I'm much older than her, which makes me totally freaked out. But,
We don't discuss such things.
Yeah,
there you go.
There you are.
So we don't discuss
That's
such
why your
things.
mic was off, because
Yeah,
we don't
we
discuss
discuss
such
such
things.
things. Exactly. Age, years.
But when I met Sarah as a very young and up-and-coming executive, I was always impressed with her ability to see the big picture, to talk anybody into anything, and to have the smarts to go along with it. And I know, even though we were not working in the fashion industry at the time, that's where you wanted to be, and that's where you ended up. And when Sarah saw the show and we were having just a friendly conversation, and I threatened to drag her on, she accepted, because Sarah is, as I said, a senior director of merchandising for U.S. training for Adidas. Now, I have to ask a quick question.
Yeah.
When I lived in Europe, nobody called it Adidas.
That is true. It is Adidas.
Adidas.
Yes.
So what is the
Yes.
real name, and why don't we use it here?
It is Adidas, but even internally in the U.S. in our office, us Americans, it's still Adidas. So no harm, no foul.
We
Yeah,
butcher so many
I know,
things, you know?
I
And even when you're telling us how it should be pronounced, we're not going to go along.
I don't
with
either.
it.
The Brits and the Germans in the office, the Europeans, they still say Adidas.
I want you to know I
Adidas.
got scolded about it, because I was saying Adidas for a while, and I can't remember who it was. It's like, it's not Adidas, it's Adidas. And I'm like,
No.
oh, God.
You were right.
Thank
butcher
you.
It. Yeah, every
Do you
day.
understand that
Yeah.
it's very exciting when I get to be right about something? So that's all good. Thank
Right,
you for
because you're so
confirming that.
rarely right.
Yeah. Never. I'm never right. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. It's amazing. Claps. It is really good to be here.
We really appreciate it. Can you give everybody a 60-second of, who you are, what you do, and what you influence in the world of Adidas?
So as Wendy mentioned, I've now been in the apparel industry. I will date myself, but almost 20 years.
Remember,
often-
my dad is watching. It always bothers him when I'm really old, because then he's older.
Not at all. Not at all. Coming out of a business development background, thank you, Wendy, and have been a lot on the fashion side, working in ready-to-wear and denim and footwear and various and sundry companies. And I love Los Angeles. I miss Los Angeles, but I had an opportunity to go join a company that I've loved for a very long time, that as a lifelong competitive athlete, like you two, I have a huge passion for sports. I've had a huge love of this brand, a collection of footwear that I've had that was getting massive and is now even more massive. And it was just a great opportunity to really connect the things that I love. So be able to use my industry experience and then get to a company who's built around the passion for sport and what it can do, quite honestly, to help people's lives. So yeah.
So now your focus, though, is on the women's side, the women's athleisure apparel.
Not
Explain
necessarily.
it so I don't butcher it.
Yeah, no worries. Not necessarily. So I do both men's and
Okay.
women's, but I do work in, as you mentioned, U.S. training. So training is all the things that you wear and that surround the training world. So bras and tights, tees and shorts, base layer, but then also that kind of, we don't really use the term, but the athleisure lifestyle piece. So the things that you might see on a sideline, for example. So sweatshirts, sweatpants, but all inspired by what is happening, quite honestly, with our athletes. So what's happening in the pro space, the college space, even the high school space, influences those kind of sideline or lifestyle pieces. So
I love
that's
that.
what I work on.
Sideliner
Yeah.
lifestyle piece. I want to be a sideliner
Sideliner
lifestyle piece.
piece.
I can stand on any sideline. I'll even look good.
I'll
I can
keep
have
you
my makeup
posted.
done.
They have some great stuff to help you look great.
I know. I could be the poster child for them.
Yeah, no, really.
Or
the
the
stuff
poster
is
old
really,
person for
You know
them.
who to call. You
I
know
know.
who to call.
Of all the stuff out there, I mean, Adidas has some of the most creative, fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
around.
we call ourselves the creator brand, and a lot of that it comes from really building off of our consumers, or we call them creators, and that could be just a 12-year-old girl or boy to a pro athlete or a high school athlete, what they do to influence what's going on in sport. If you see like a James Harden or a Lillard or these guys that are doing some, and women, obviously Caroline Wozniacki, who just we just signed her and she won Australian Open, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just doing amazing things in their field. And influencing these kids that are, who have more followers than pro athletes. So you watch
Right.
them and what they do in our apparel, what they do together with us, and what we quite honestly get from them as such inspirational creators.
So that's for sure part of what we want to talk about. But I want to set the stage a little bit before we go on, because whenever we have a guest coming on, we always want to get a little bit knowledgeable what's happening in the industry. And you said not athleisure. Now, am I going to totally piss everybody off if I keep calling it that? Because at the end of the day, really, that's what everybody's calling you and Nike and all of the kind of competitive brands, the Under Armour and...
It's fine. It's fine. We don't use it.
Sideline lifestyle piece.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's
longer.
performance, like performance sportswear or lifestyle sportswear is
Sure.
probably the ways that we describe it. But don't worry about it. You can use athleisure.
No,
it's
I'm
fine.
curious. No, I'm very curious, because I think athleisure as a brand is something that we, the consumer, are becoming quite accustomed to. So that's why it was very interesting to me that internally, or even as a brand, you wouldn't express yourself under that banner. But I understand why.
Yeah, I think what I would assume Nike's the same way, not 100%, but that because we truly build product for sport. Everything that we do
Right.
either is built for performance, or even our originals products is really that kind of heritage street style, that lifestyle that surrounds sport. So I feel like the athleisure piece tends to be more in the vein of the yoga brands and the things that maybe are not quite derived directly from performance sportswear. So I think that's why we take a lot of pride in what goes into the product, where it comes from. That's why.
So you're dissing all those people who don't do it.
No,
I love
that's
it.
not their. That's not their. We're a sport brand. So yeah.
No, I get it. And again, for myself, ourselves, and our viewers' sake, it's great to have that distinction, because first of all, as I found out as I was doing the research, it's a very complicated industry.
It is.
It's ginormous.
Yep.
Ginormous. So hundreds of billions of dollars. And if you just take out the athleisure aspect of it, it's still in the hundreds of billions of it. So like say trillions of dollars, and it's the hundreds of billions of dollars for that sector of sports, lifestyle brand. And the reason I want to set the stage is because traditionally brands like Adidas will have marketed towards the male gender, mostly because sport has always been perceived as being typically male. That's who the athletes are. That's who the celebrity athletes tend to be. And why don't you kind of help us understand why that market why it's shifting for you as a brand? Like, why are you looking towards the future of being female?
Yeah. I think you could compare it to what's happening in the world, right? If women don't succeed, if we don't appeal to women, we're not going to win as a brand. And in particular in apparel. So men tend to dress feet first. So footwear tends to drive male purchase, where apparel drives female purchase. Yeah. So being on the apparel side and being the largest apparel business in the company, training, if we don't win with women, we're not going to win. And I just think as a whole, with what's happening in the world with women and what's happening in the world of sport, it doesn't make sense otherwise. It doesn't make sense to look at these women, look at USA Soccer, look at what these women are doing across the world in sport. And again, we're finally, I would say, waking up and have been for the past few years, but as well as the other big brands, to recognize what she is going to do for the world and for us as a brand. I just think it's bringing a whole new energy, and it's bringing a whole new energy in terms of who we're appealing to, because to Wendy's point, even the women's product we made was built on men's styling. So male last for footwear, and then we did let's just make it a jacket for men. We're we'll just do a version of that.
Exactly. Smaller sizes go pink.
Yeah,
I think I read the term as shrink it and pink it.
Right.
Yes, literally that was the term I picked up on.
Yep,
which is highly offensive, by the way.
It's shrink
I
and
am not a
pink.
pink person. I do not,
you and me both.
unless it's a deep pink, closer to purple.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's very true, and that we've recognized very clearly. I mean, if you want to talk about it from cold hard math and from a bottom line perspective, we're just foolish if we don't pay attention to her.
Right.
Now, there's so much more to it than just that, but we are a for-profit company.
Exactly.
So you can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah, numbers can't lie.
Yeah, exactly.
And some of the articles I read are saying that specifically about your senior, your highest management it's the number one focus.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That everything is heading in that direction, and with all due respect to male. And I don't want to make this about a gender issue, because I'm all for equality, but I think it's very fascinating what you're saying, because it means a lot of different things have to be thought through not just sizes, not just, okay, it doesn't have to be pink or just shrinking something, but everything from how you're communicating what the brand is. I love what you're saying about the fact that men buy from the ground up. That's just it's a shift in mentality and what's going to be important to your female consumer versus your male consumers, but also the whole experience from start to finish. Can you tell us how that's shaping up within your company from design to retail, to the retail end?
Yeah. I mean, so much, I think it all starts with consumer insights for us and really understanding who she is. So we have, I would say too, a little bit, an important piece of this is also the shift in who we're considering an athlete, right? What sport means to women's now. So you have they run the gamut from a high school athlete, a pro athlete, but then there's what we call a versatile female athlete, or a VFA. So she's somebody who may have been a high school athlete and she's shifting away from traditional sport. So she's doing things like CrossFit and yoga and spin and all the Orange Theory and all the millions of different ways that she can stay fit. And that is really becoming her community, her focus, her friendships, sometimes it even connects with her job. So for us to be able to design product, we really need to understand who she is and kind of who our target consumers. So we do have those true serious athlete, female athletes, but then we really have focused in on this VFA because she's about, let's say, 21 to maybe 28, 25, 26. She's starting a job. She's we want to get her connected to the brand and we want to service her. And it's not just about product. So it has to be about how we interface in her world, quite honestly, because people are choosing brands not just for what's on them, the logo on them, but like, do they represent anything to them? So that's a lot to say that when we design the product, all that has to be kept in mind because, if we're just making use sports bras that are thick straps, they're not taking into consideration what activities, what sport, what she's doing. She may be going from yoga to work, yoga to coffee. If we don't take any of that into consideration, not only do we make a product that may not perform well enough, but we certainly don't make a product that meets her needs. So it's a lot of what we do in my group is really work on the consumer insights and feed that into our design and creation teams, and then conversely work with our marketing communications, to connect those dots all the way through. And it's a global conversation, not just a U.S. conversation.
Do you find that? Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Do you find there's a big difference between the women in the U.S. and women in other parts of the world in terms of how they're viewing their athletic careers, really what it is?
I think the biggest difference, and this is both for men and women, is with regard to what's happening in the U.S. in terms of the creativity of sport. So again, all those things I just said, all those different types of studio classes, all those ways that she can now train and work out. We have so much more here. Like the concept of training is such a U.S. thing. Yeah. And I would say too, like how high school and athletics are so intertwined in what athletics can do or sport can do for kids, for example, doesn't really exist as much. Like in Europe you have football, soccer, but you don't have that same gamut of sport and opportunities through sport. So you definitely see women, I mean, obviously our Western Europe business, our Asian businesses, all of those, they're still looking for those great pieces, but the use of them may be a little bit different, and the insights are a little bit different. So
do you drive off the U.S. market?
Yeah.
And then it kind of spreads, and then you tweak as you go around the world?
In particular, in our business unit, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
When you were describing the VFA, you stuck to a very specific sort of age group there, but I'm assuming there's also a huge focus on those, I mean, we'll say we're 40 plus.
I pretend I'm a
because
VFA, so it's okay.
I'm going to be
what
a
are
VFA
we?
in my head.
Do we have an acronym?
It's
because
a very
we
good
also
point.
go from wake up in the morning and prepare the kids for school and haul them off to school, and then we go from there to the gym and then on to the work. And I mean, some of the stuff nowadays is phenomenal. I mean, besides just performance and function, it's beautiful wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and it's not just the 21 to 26.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because you described, and it's okay if that's just the focus of your brand, but you described an athlete that maybe played sports in high school and now isn't going to continue on. And, I always did sports. I never wanted to do it competitively. I always did it kind of on the sidelines in my own way, and always wanting to be fit for what, and how I did it. So, I know you can't please everybody, and we won't be offended if you say that's the target.
No, think of it this way. I mean, we all joke about this, of course, in the office, because you have almost everybody in that office was a former athlete, currently is, could still compete, everything.
Sure.
So you think of it this way. You have to have a sharp point. So you've got to be able to create those aspirational pieces, and from there you're going to build, right? If our sharp point, that's where the creativity is coming from. That's where those are the women and men that are really doing what's driving what's happening all around sport. So it's really our sharp point. It does not mean that we don't care about, women that are over 20. Trust me, they're like all this, we want to wear the product, we want to live in the product, and so it's really that's where all the inspiration comes.
Sure.
And you build from there.
Right. No, that makes sense.
However, I do expect that in the next few weeks you will have an acronym for us. Please.
And we'll come up with one.
Can you
I promise?
please?
Yes.
With all of your skills, I would like to. Or actually, listeners out there, anybody, please
send us your ideas.
Send us your ideas for acronyms for women over 35 who never competed in sports and have kids.
But I did. I did compete in sports.
You did.
I did.
Okay.
I was
who
a
may or
former
may
athlete.
not have. Yes,
may or may not have.
May or may not have.
Yeah.
With kids, going to school and work every day.
Yes.
Can you make that? Can you please make?
Multitasking.
Oh, that's it. The MTF, multitasking female.
All right.
MTF. That's not what comes to mind when I say MTF, but okay. We'll start there. We'll start with that.
There are lots of people watching. I really want to hear it.
Sharp edge.
Let's go back to the sharp edge. Sorry, I digress. Okay, so I get how you're now kind of looking at the design and who you're designing for. How do you take into account, though, or do you at this point? Yes, men have many different body types, but I'm going to venture to say that women also have a bigger swing of body types, from chest size to whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and I don't want to upset anybody, but the point is that one of the biggest things that I think is the complaint of the design from the Shrink It and Pink It is because you're talking a male silhouette, and then you're having to put it into a female silhouette, and it doesn't always work.
Yep.
So how are you taking into account kind of the diversity of not only the sports that women are doing, but the size and shape of women?
Absolutely. And I would say that more work has gone into this in the last 2 years, and we are really ramping it up right now. So, we have not done a great job in the past of this. But I'm really proud of the energy and the efforts that are going into it now. So, for example, I actually did a bra fitting we'll call it an event. So we've hired an expert who is amazing around just bras. And what we have learned, as a woman, you think you know these things, but we don't know these things. What we have learned about different shapes and sizes and what that means for the product and what the product needs to do. So that's one example of something that we're doing, because someone that is a C cup is different than somebody else that's a C cup.
And I would imagine cup size changes also based on what sport you're doing.
Absolutely. And what you need the product to do.
Right.
I would say the same about tights. So bras and tights are really those two critical pieces for her that we have got to nail, because that's where you earn her trust. That's where you're going to get her to come back to the brand. So those are the places that we've been putting a lot of energy and development, and we've finally hit the market with an amazing tight that fits better. That high rise is a demand, so it fits better.
High rise is amazing. It's
and
crucial.
we've finally gotten there.
High rise.
Yeah. So those are kind of our key core fits, if you will, or core items. Now, with regard to things like plus sizes, extended sizes, that's something that we actually are starting to dig into very, very seriously. It is a very complex business and is different. So if we're going to do this, we want to do it honoring that consumer, understanding that consumer, making sure that the products are not just like, hey, you don't just size it up. That's not right. So you need to build brand new product for her. So we're not there yet, but it is something that we will be doing, and we are committing to. We do have extended sizes, meaning we go into like a double XL currently, which we weren't doing in the past. So one product cannot please everybody, but we are really trying to broaden our offer and make sure that we are servicing, because there's a lot of really amazing athletes that are not a size 4.
Right. Well, it's so interesting. Our guest in a couple of weeks is a woman who we're talking about body image with. She's an expert in it, and she has an aerobics class for she calls them fat kids, but I'll let her say that, not me. But, for plus size, because it really is about health, not size of your body, and getting out there and moving. And I would imagine that any brand like Adidas would want to capture that market, because I have to imagine it's quite large.
Yeah, and it's a need not just
No
in the
pun
U.S.
intended.
Right. I mean, it's right. We've talked about, should this be a U.S. only? It's not a U.S. only conversation.
Right.
So I'm excited. It's something I'm involved in and working on, and I think we're gonna make it happen.
So as we go through the customer journey, and you so outlined it so well, it's about the design, and it's about understanding who she is, and understanding what their day looks like and how they move through it. Now then you have to talk about that marrying with the marketing, and how are you communicating that as a brand. And you were sharing some really fascinating things with Era and I. So of course, again, we were pushed in a great way to start to get engaged with it. So can you give us a little idea of now, if it's not just, okay, it's pink, so now they'll buy it, which is kind of how the marketing was before, or, you've talked about celebrity, relationships that hopefully will drive sales. What are you guys thinking of now as you're looking at this market, and how are you shifting what you're doing in order to engage that female consumer?
Yeah, it's definitely a shift. I think to your point in the past, this could be a sport brand, this could be a fashion brand. You could put a celebrity face in an ad with the brand, and you'd be great. Does not work, and it especially does not work right now. And I think, again, because we're coming at this from the creator brand perspective, we look to our consumers and our creators to influence so we can connect directly with them. So really what we're doing, it doesn't mean that we don't work with pro athletes or we don't have those partnerships, but in particular with women, because what we have found is that she does not necessarily connect with pro athletes. So she might look at a Caroline Wozniacki or somebody that's, doing great things and say, that's great, but that is not necessarily, there's not a correlation to her world. Again, I'm talking our Sharp Point consumer.
Sure. Yep.
So it's really, we're working with a lot of what we call influencers and women that are just doing amazing things, whether they're Peloton instructors, charging running or leading running communities out of New York. There's a few that you like. Carly Kloss is one, Hannah Bronfman is one. So there's people that are more well-known than others, but whatever it is in their communities, they have amazing followers. They are contributing, whether it's energy, diet, mindfulness, just their overall lifestyle, travel, what she really relates to. So we're really taking more of a grassroots approach, and this kind of what we call it like an always-on approach. So we might have a campaign. We've had one every spring for the last 3 years. But then from there, each of the different kind of categories, and I'll speak just to training, we do this kind of always on. So we're connecting with her via social media. We do influencer events. We just did a big event in New York City around a tight called the WarpNet tight. And we had like 20 influencers in there doing different workouts and activities. And we had a tattoo artist and, whatever food, nutrition, whatever's going on in their world, we're trying to connect authentically to that and then what's important to her in the world. So, and like I said, it doesn't mean that we don't respect, love, and still want to have athletes, because we talk about that a lot. Like we go down the list of influencers and we're like, oh, those are great. Any athletes?
Right.
And like we still want to be able to connect to athletes that are doing cool things, and that tends to be harder on the female side.
But I think that's also what makes it so much fun and exciting, because I think, years ago where it might have been really intimidating to look to a sports brand and figure out how you fit in that world and why you'd walk into a store and buy anything from that particular line. Nowadays, when you think of performance lifestyle, it really is for anyone.
Yep.
I mean, whoever you are and whatever you do, you are performing on some level. What I love about the Creator campaign, for example, is that it really sort of showcases everyone from, a chef to, like you said, a tattoo artist, like just everyday people doing their own thing, whatever they happen to be really amazing at, and they're performing at their own level in their own particular field or industry. And there is athleisure wear, for lack of a better term, that suits their purpose.
Yeah.
Well, and who may want to be associated with your brand and who would
Yeah.
choose to use your performance apparel for whatever they're doing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I would say another thing that we do is we have a partnership with an organization called Wanderlust. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wanderlust
It's
at all.
so interesting. Somebody we know quite well is going to be speaking up there.
Fabulous.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
Karen Berg.
they're amazing. And so again, that is the heart of the VFA, and the running and the yoga and the cross training, but
Right.
also just the energy and the environment that surrounds it. So we have a collaboration with them on a product side, as well as just other kind of health, nutrition, mindfulness events, that kind of a thing. So those are the ways that we've chosen to really reach her, and then try to expand, past her.
It sounds like it's so much more experiential. It's so much more, it has to be so much more well-rounded. You can't just tell me because, say, I need I need something to go running in, right? It's not just about that. You're trying, I'm my MTF mode, sorry. But what I'm saying is, it's like you're giving a whole experience, and you're showing how your brand fits into it versus aspirational, it sounds like. Whereas if I'm seeing a celebrity, I find it really interesting, by the way, because a lot of women are, in fact, the statistics are showing that sports fans now, women are almost at or overtaking the majority of people who are sports fan in terms of gender,
Right.
and who would happily be excited to see, any male athlete, associated with a certain brand, right? So I find it very fascinating that when you say, it's harder to attract a VFA on, a Carolyn Wozniacki, because she's like, whatever. I find that fascinating, because is it because there isn't the equivalent of a Tom Brady in women's sports?
It's, if you look at, I'll use Under Armour. So they have a contract with The Rock. So they're looking at these celebrities that are athletes, right? And same like Kevin Hart is with Nike, right? He's a serious runner. So they're looking at these people to try to bridge that gap between athlete and celebrity. We don't have that person on the female side, but we've talked a lot about that, because we still want aspirational, and we still have a lot of great athletes in our portfolio. But again, like how we're reaching that, and I hate to play the age range, but I'm throwing myself with you. I'm with you.
We're old.
Like
I am not old.
we'll take it to 30, right?
Demographically, in our minds, we are not.
Like we'll take it to 30 years old. Even what they're doing in their life right now is so different. So we have to be able to understand that and connect
Right.
with that, and
Sure.
that they're. Maybe they don't even have, some of them aren't even driving, they're just traveling, they want to be free, they want to be going,
Yeah.
they want to be connecting, so it's not so much like, and that's why I think that pro athlete, I also think there's just a shift in what people are watching. I mean, I think for us, and again, I hate to say it, but like generation, we grew up with like traditional sport, and
Right.
I think that's shifting. I think what people are doing with sport, how they're training is very different. So it's just,
Let me tell you, we're going to be here a year from now, and you're going to be telling us how you're outfitting esports athletes soon. Because let me tell you something.
Yeah.
How to sit and you're going to have the right outfit for sitting in front of a computer, because that's a
Yeah.
growing industry that's
Yeah.
right in that
Yeah.
kind of sweet spot in terms of
Yeah.
age demographic that is just exploding. So
yeah, I mean, never say never. I think it's probably a conversation that all, the big brands are having, and trying to
sure.
figure out the right way to do it. And
I'm not talking about esports. I'm just saying that how the evolution of how we
How we
engage with
define
sports and how
sports.
we define sports and how we're moving through it. Brands always have to be kind of one step ahead.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think I'm somewhat joking when I say esports, but I'm actually not.
No.
never know.
Yeah.
Because
Well, and going back to the whole celebrity status idea, I think social media has changed things for us so much, because, whereas, I don't know, 20 years ago, all you really could look to was a celebrity for what the aspiration was,
Right.
what was amazing, and, what you wanted to be. Nowadays, anyone can build who he or she is. You can define your own brand. You are the influencer. You can be anything you want to be. So we don't need celebrities
and these high
quite the
school
same way.
kids have more followers, and these
Yeah.
influencers, the female influencers, have more followers than many, if not most, of these celebrities. These kids are like building their brand every day. They're on, like anytime they're training, anytime they're doing, it's being filmed and they're putting it out there, and they have, it's
amazing and terrifying all at the same time.
Yes.
So let's jump to that. I mean,
it really is.
It is. I mean, Aaron,
as a parent, it's terrifying to me. I cannot imagine my child growing up to being an influencer in this way,
on camera all the time,
worrying, because also I think you worry all the time about how you look, and everything is everything's tailored to just performing.
Well, I got to tell you something. This is where again the age kicks in, because I've been watching some of these and I'm like, oh my God, why would you watch this? So boring. Like, I feel like it's, my grandparents are sitting there watching me watch TV like 50 years ago, 40 years ago, going, why would you watch that? Like, it's junk. It's unbelievable. But I want to say, before we start talking about influencers, I got a terminology lesson today. Fitfluencers.
Oh,
have you
heard that one? Not heard that one. No.
Fitfluencers.
But that makes sense.
Very big.
Yeah,
yes,
that makes sense.
Women are driving about 85% of the consumer market purchase decisions. Mm-hmm. That's shocking, isn't it?
If not more, in terms of if having influence over if they may be physically making 85%, but they may be influencing closer to 95%.
Sure, because they're buying for themselves and they're buying for
So we come back around to the future is female, and if any brand, I don't care what your brand isn't recognizing that, and I'm not saying this from a soapbox standpoint, it's just fact.
Numbers. Yeah.
It's just numbers.
Yeah, it's smart business.
So social media and branding, and how are you communicating through social media, and how are you looking at what an influencer is, and how do you pursue them, and how do you decide whether they're going to be, an influencer for 30 seconds or if they have some sustainability? Because, also there's a lot of, I'll use it air quotes, ADD amongst these young, these young folks. Yeah. But they switch. They switch a lot. It goes from one minute to the next. Yeah. So what are you looking for, and how are you using social media? I'll also say I was on, Instagram trying to educate myself a lot, and you have a lot of Instagram sites as well, which I find that to be understandable but annoying.
We do. So that's and I can't obviously speak to all of them, but every one of our key categories. So football, soccer, swimming, basketball, originals, skate. Yes, we have a lot, and we just have Adidas. So, you're going to use those channels, and depending on some people that play football and basketball may not care about swimming. They're never going to follow Adidas swimming. So that's not a thing. So we're trying to target and hone in on those specific athletes and consumers that have a passion in that area. And it's a really good point, right? I mean, we think about this not just in terms of the influencers, but if you think about the athletes and how far out we tend to have to sign them, they could get injured. We don't know what's going to happen a few years from now. And in terms of the women, we do work with an agency that has a roster, and they are very, very on top of what's happening. And they are also on top of who's up and coming. They're tracking how many followers, what other kind of activities and deals they're doing, because they probably are signed with other brands in different industries, categories. They might have a shampoo brand, or they might have, so.
It's not always about the apparel, because as an influencer, they're often doing everything from health, beauty, cosmetics, food, you name it, whatever their day is bringing to them.
Yeah. Carly Kloss is a great one to use. We've now used her for a couple of years, and she's amazing. And so we only use influencers that are, if they're celebrities that are also athletes. We're not just using someone to be a pretty face, whereas maybe like Kendall Jenner is an asset of our originals team. So that is definitely more on the style side. So there's not something in training that we would use. So Carly, she was a dancer. She's still an athlete. She goes and leads classes with, sometimes in conjunction with different retailers, with women's events. She helps kind of doing consumer research. And so she's very, very much involved in what's going on. So those are the types of people we look at. But who's the next Carly Kloss? I don't know, right? So we have a couple, I can't say, that will be part of a campaign coming out in the fall, which we feel like probably will be known to some, many, again, some not known to me at the beginning, and then probably will grow from there, right? So we do rely heavily on our agencies to help us kind of gauge whether or not they're going to be
for real.
Yeah.
They're for real, and what's happening with them.
Do you save money?
Do we save money?
Well, versus going to a celebrity pro athlete.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you do. But I think depending on who it is, the
I'm
longevity,
surprised, though,
right?
by the way. I'm surprised.
That we save money?
Yeah, I thought the answer was going to be no.
I can't tell you exactly, but I mean, if you think about some of these contracts are, my guess is that we would, and we do it because we can go broader. And
Right.
maybe it adds up to be the same, but then you get that many more influencers that are reaching that many more
Right.
people.
Yeah.
So it's, I think, smarter. Yeah, for
So
sure.
going back to our earlier conversation about Darius Bazley, is that, he's a 17-year-old kid at a high school now going into the G League. Is that someone that big brands would be chasing down because you don't have the restrictions of the NCAA and so on and so forth?
I can't say for sure. I would say we definitely look for rookies. So we had a great rookie class, basketball and then football again this coming season. I don't know whether we would go there. We might. So again, I wouldn't be able to answer that entirely, but we definitely look for we want the up and comers, the ones that are doing really cool stuff, because again, they're the creators, right? They are bringing newness to the sport, any sport. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So taking away the mystique behind it, once you're working with these influencers, are they really? Does it affect their credibility and their authenticity? Because you're now paying them a lot of money to influence people towards your brand. And I know that it sounds weird to say that because that's what you do with a professional athlete, but in a way they're professional athletes and they kind of earn that. Not that these influencers haven't. Do you understand what I'm saying? That it's kind of like there's a unbiasedness that I suspect had to exist when they started that now isn't. Does that trouble you guys or?
No, I think because we really are looking for that authentic connection with them. So I think anyone that we would bring on and anyone that would quite honestly wear Adidas product really believes in what we're doing and are very much a part of it. They input on product. We have them out there wearing the product. We have insights groups with them, consumer research groups, or not consumers, but using them as part. So they're inputting in the product and they are part of our company. They're part of our network. So I don't think that they would sign on otherwise. And what we're asking them to do, whether they're doing Wanderlust events or if it's Carly doing something, they wouldn't do it if it wasn't authentic to what they're doing. Because that's, to your point, right? That's their persona. That's their livelihood. Yeah.
You kind of get it when it's a pro athlete. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm making a choice. It's a commercial choice, maybe. Whereas an influencer has to maintain their influencer status, and if it seems like it's too commercial, then you're not going to buy it, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to. What are the road bumps in this kind of path to the future being female?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are a few. I think what something you kind of hinted at earlier is the pace of change and trying to continually stay with this woman. In our industry, we work so far out with product. So being able to stay on top of trends, being able to stay on top of innovation. We build these kind of futures, very innovative product years and years and years out. So by the time you get there,
they're no longer innovative.
Is it relevant?
Right.
Are we still ahead, or did somebody else come out with it before us, right? Or something very similar. Continuing to drive that authentic connectivity as a multi-billion-dollar brand. How do you do that? How do you stay relevant for them? And honestly, I think it's also continuing to appeal to different women. So again, VFA, sharp point. But that VFA could be a size 2 or a size 20. I don't know, right? Yeah. So we need to make sure we're still servicing her, we're listening to her. And Adidas is a very big brand. It's like turning the Titanic sometimes, and then being able to connect across a globe, multi-market.
I do want to kind of piggyback onto that because you have your competitors. We know who they are, the Nikes, the Under Armours, but those are also equally big brands, and they're also chasing exactly the same market. One of the interesting things that I read along the way were about the smaller brands, the kind of upstarts that Carbon 38, Sweaty Betty's, even Athletica, Fabletics,
Beyond Yoga,
Grace by Grit.
Exactly. Yeah. So is it when you're going up against these I don't know. I feel like when you're going up against your big competitors, like there's a system for that. There's a spy versus spy kind of system. But you have all of these upstarts that, frankly, are probably more adept at using influencers and more adept at using the social media.
They've had to.
They've had because they've had to. How do you view them?
I'm really glad that you brought that up. That's a great point, and it's really, I think, a female specific challenge, right? Because the quote unquote athleisure market has been around for some time, right? We've had kind of like a downshift in denim, uptrend, and everyone wearing tights everywhere.
By the way, this is the new casual Friday attire. Apparently, athleisure wear is becoming the new business casual.
Absolutely. Yeah. So those smaller brands, whether they be at a affordable price, because anyone from H&M all the way up to like a Beyond Yoga or an Aloe, or the things that you see at Bandiera Carbon 38. They have changed how women dress, and they are on top of trends. They are creating the trends and driving the trends. Right. So it is something, as I mentioned, we're so far out, that's really challenging for us. So let's say prints are hot one year, and then we have to swing all the way back, but we've developed already, a year and a half out. So then, oh God, now what? So keeping up with them, yes, they do use influencers, they use celebrities, but a lot of the ones that are kind of high fashion are also smaller and, can't afford multi-billion dollar, million dollar contracts. So they're looking at grassroots and all that as well. So yeah, we're all competing for the same consumers essentially. So that again is why we have to get as sharp as we possibly can with who she is, and making sure as a sport brand that we have sport at the center of everything, because some of the yoga brands, for example, not so much, right? Or they look pretty and they're great for yoga, but if you were to try to go run in them, they may not work out so well. Right. So like we have to stay very, very true to who we are, because it's really easy to go off point, and that's whether it's a UA, a Nike, or any of those fashion brands, is like we have to keep coming back to why is this product messaging, marketing uniquely Adidas? Does it meet that criteria?
And how does that align now with do you ignore it with the political atmosphere surrounding women nowadays? Where women want to and should have a voice, but they're having a voice in a very different way. And alongside that, female athletes are having a much bigger voice. You could just use the example of the U.S. women's soccer team, standing up for their equal pay. So how does that fit in, or does Adidas say, look, that's not our thing, and we recognize that as being a part of the female experience, particularly of that age group, by the way? I would imagine the VFAs are very vocal in their political views.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we as a brand try not to engage in politics. However, I would say that we are very, very equality, whether it's women, whether it's, gay, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whatever it is, we are very much a proponent of that, and will support a voice. We don't actively engage in it, but we absolutely support women having a voice. So for us, it's really about how we can empower them, again, on and off the field, through the lens of sport. Our mission is really through sport, we can empower people. Through sport, we have the power to change lives. So that's really what we do, and we try to look for those opportunities. And if it happens to correlate with, empowering women, we're all about it. Just, probably not from a political perspective.
Well, and I wasn't thinking that you were taking on a political attitude, but I imagine that many of your influencers have politics as part of their conversation, and does that influence who you pick or how you pick them, or whether you're supporting them or not?
Yeah, no, we don't shy away from it. If that influencer is the right influencer, and she's kicking ass and doing amazing things, and as a powerful role model for women, we do not shy away from that. Yeah.
Era.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's that's where we are now. That's what's again, it goes back to that's the day and age that we're living in. Whereas decades ago, you might be a little fearful about voicing an opinion one way or the other. Nowadays, you don't have to be, and you don't have to be worried that big companies or smaller companies are going to turn away from you, because you really can be, as you said earlier, authentic. Be who you are and speak your mind and say what you have to say. And there are companies and platforms that will support you. I think it's an amazing place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I cannot believe it, but we have come to the end of our 50-minute show, which I have 1,000 more questions. I'm sure I've cut you off many times, and you have 1,000 more questions too. But
we just need to bring Sarah back.
No, we have to bring Sarah back next time. Swag. No.
Oh, yeah. Hey,
we'll send you our sizes.
Totally. No, but you know what I really loved about this conversation? I want to say thank you because not only have you represented Adidas and the vision and kind of the expertise in what's going on in a very important industry in our country and around the world that is multi-billion dollars, and we as participants in purchasing gear, you know, it's enlightening for me. But also what you said, and what I love about your brand in particular, is that, you know, sports, through the lens of sports, you empower people. And at the distillery, that's what we are all about. Like I said, we are about sports equals life, and anywhere that sports can do that, it's a positive for everybody. Also, I want to say I'm sure there's a whole conversation we can have about kids too, and how little kids are being influencers. Because let me tell you, our 2 5-year-olds, oh my God, it's like they know what they want and they know what they want to wear, and when you grab them, they're done. Then you're spending way too much money. So maybe next time you come on,
kids.
I want to thank everybody who's tuned in from around the world. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it every time you come on. Our next show is on April 24th, and we have an amazing guest. Her name is Bevan Blandlingham. I'm saying it slowly. I'm going to practice it many times over the next couple of weeks. And Bevan is an advocate for healthy body image, and she also runs the Fat Kid Dance Party, which is an aerobics class for women who are not as thin as some of the VFAs. And we're really excited to talk to her because it goes off the back of this as well. And I think body image is a super important topic. And so we're very excited to see her. So please join us then. You can find us on our website, www.thedistilleryinc.com, on our Facebook page. We are also on iTunes, Spotify, Castbox, Stitcher. So please subscribe, like us, comment, and we always love to hear from you. So anytime you do have comments, please visit any of our sites, check out our blog, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. And thank you again, Sarah. We really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure to be here.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.